Welcome to Taste Buds. I'm Debra Eckerling, goal strategist, writer, and foodie, and today I'm speaking with chef, entertainer, and cookbook author Eitan Bernath. And his new digital series is called Eitan Explores Mexico City, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, but basically we're just going to jam about food, right?
Yes, thank you
Welcome.
so much for having me. So happy to be here. And yes, you can wake me up at 4 a.m. and I would be excited to talk about food.
You've been cooking for ever,
I just
right?
turned 22 last week, and I started cooking. I think I was like around 8 years old, and I'm hitting this year the 10-year anniversary of me working in food, like media and food entertainment. I was on Chopped when I was 11, and it aired when I was 12. So it's been like a decade. It's almost now more of my life than it hasn't been, which is crazy.
That is crazy. So, what started it all off?
I've always just like had a big obsession with food. I'm very like obsessive person. Like I don't casually like things. I don't like pick up a hobby that I do like once in a blue moon. Like I'm so like if I'm into something, I'm like 130%. So with food, I started cooking. I didn't really fit in when I was younger with like the little leagues or sports, but like I really loved food. My mom encouraged me, why don't you try cooking some food? And I really just fell in love with being in the kitchen. And I think it started very practically when I was, little Eitan. It was like, oh wow, okay, if I want to eat a burger, if I cook the burger myself, then I can eat it. And it was very like ABCD kind of string of events. And then I obviously grew that passion. And the way I got started working in media with food was when I was 11. I randomly auditioned for a episode of Chopped on Food Network, got on, and it from there started my social media and everything that came after.
And a lot has changed, right? In the 10 years. I mean, things have changed in the last 5 years, but I imagine from the time you started
Yeah.
to now, what do you think has changed the most in food media, and food? I know I
I
said
would say
food
the
twice.
biggest change I think that's ever happened in the 10 years of me and I distinctly kind of remember, I would say in like 2018ish, maybe 2019, it was all about food photography, photos of your food. And I would say around 2019 it was video or nothing. And so I think that was a big change. I think it was some change that I embraced and kind of, not even kind of, really did lead me to where I am today, with the kind of explosive growth that I had in 2020 with video, primarily on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. And I think that was, I would say, the biggest change. I would say by 2020, if you weren't doing video content, what are you doing?
Exactly. Because what is it? Our attention spans are shorter than ever.
Yeah.
And if a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a video is worth like a gazillion, something like that.
Infinite words. Yes. I don't know that it's quantifiable, but yes, so many words. And I think the most, kind of fascinating part of the job of creating specifically short form video content for social media of food is, a lot of times, I'll hear feedback from my audience like, wow, you make it look so easy. It looks so easy. That's the goal. It should look easy and effortless, but the amount of non-easiness, to say it very, very simply, is what makes it look so easy. And I think it's always, if it looks like I effortlessly filmed the video, that means I did a good job. But there's a lot of effort into the food, the prep, the lighting, how it's shot, how I speak, what I'm wearing. Like every little detail is thought out to make it look effortless.
I love that. Well, and you see, so I found a way to do a food show that involves no cooking at all whatsoever. So we have my priorities are the
Yes.
words, right?
There's so many avenues.
Well, I am a reformed non-cook, so I just started loving cooking. I think it's almost exactly 7 years ago I got my Instant Pot and realized that cooking could be easy.
Oh,
And
amazing.
talk about going from one extreme to all the other way, going from non-cook to food writer and food podcaster. What is it? I know the eating, but beyond the eating, what is it you love so much about food and cooking?
Yeah, it's a great question. Also, for anyone listening who doesn't know, I live in New York City, and the police sirens in the background that are nonstop are very evident of that. I think for me, one of the things most about food that's very meaningful and kind of my obsession with it, which frankly even the Mexico series, which we'll get into in a bit, really highlights, is food is the great connector. Growing up, the town I grew up in New Jersey, in Teaneck, New Jersey, is a very diverse town. Even just on my block, like there's parts, where there's very Jewish areas, or there's all different areas. I grew up in an area that was very mixed. My next door neighbor is Indian. Our other neighbor on the other side is Dominican, and we all grew up playing with each other in our backyards, on each other's trampolines, in each other's houses, celebrating each other's holidays, enjoying each other's food. And so I think my upbringing was just with so many people who weren't like me. And one of the best ways to connect was always through food. I have some of my most distinct memories of walking into my friend Heba's house and smelling what her mom was cooking, and these incredible goat curries, chicken curries. And so I think for me, from my childhood, food has really brought people together, and especially as a Jew, all our holidays are about food, and so I think to this day, food really brings people together, and I think it can feel like we live in a time of such division, and we do in a lot of ways, but food is such a great way to come together, and it can sound all kumbaya and sappy, but it really is true.
That's hilarious, because your last sentence is something that I've said on multiple occasions. So I'm completely with you on that. So tell me about the new series.
Yeah, so Eitan Explores Mexico City. My goal with this series was, I've done a lot of travel over the last bunch of years, and whenever I travel, whether it's been to India or to different parts of Europe or other parts of Asia, I'm always fascinated about connecting with Jews in that part of the world. Here in the U.S., there's this kind of idea of Jews are only Ashkenazi, white passing, Eastern European, but really there are Jews all over the world with very different backgrounds. Even Ethiopia. I've traveled to meet fellow Jews, and the thing I think that's most fascinating to connect on is our food. If you go up to someone in New York City and say, what is Jewish food? They might say matzo ball soup, corned beef, all different deli type items. But one of the things most vividly I remember, of all my travels, was in Ethiopia when I met these Ethiopian Jews. They told a story that the first time they found out that there were white-skinned Jews, and that was shocking to them. And so that was a good reminder that our experience is so limited in this world of being able to understand all the beauty of the food and cuisines of the world. And so specifically with Mexico City, it's an area I haven't explored. I didn't know that much going into it about the Jews of Mexico City. I know I like Mexican food. I know that Mexico has such a rich food culture and culture in itself. And so the goal with the series was to meet Mexican Jews, hear their stories, and learn about their food and their culture, their history, and it was such a transformative experience.
It sounds interesting and amazing, all at once. Can you give me an example of something that blew your mind from the experience?
Yeah, so I think my favorite part of the whole series, or honestly, if we just put the cameras aside, just the experience, this was a cool project because most of what I film, for those on, I'm holding up my phone now for those who are just listening to the audio, most is on my own phone. I'm usually the director, the camera operator. And this was a very big production shoot. I pulled out all the stops. It was a huge crew. It was a crew of 20, 30 people with me in Mexico. And so, yeah, while obviously, yes, I was very aware there were cameras and booms and microphones and everything around me, I was really able to experience these. And so I think my favorite just experience, which really crossed well on camera, was I had a Shabbat meal with Estrella Hafif, who's this Mexican Jewish chef who teaches about Mexican Jewry, and her family immigrated from kind of all over the Middle East, Iraq, Iran, some of them are also Lebanese, and so she's this rich background from the Middle East. They moved to Mexico when they had to flee those Middle Eastern countries, and the food they served was so good at the Shabbat meal. And we were eating these kibbeh, which are these kind of very ground up meat and rice want to use the word dumplings, but I don't know if she would use the word dumplings, but that's the closest thing I can think of to it. I would say somewhere between a dumpling and a kebab that was in this really kind of tangy stew. And, instead of tamarind, they used limes because that's what they have in Mexico. And, some people on the table, they had some sliced up avocado and they're adding avocado into that. And so this, this Middle Eastern dish infused with the ingredients of Mexico was just so beautiful. And, oh, I could eat that right now while we're talking about it.
I could eat that right now, and it's morning. So that's how good your description is. Now, do you have a recipe that you want to share either from that experience or just from your repertoire that you think that will get people excited about cooking?
Yeah, I mean, something that I put literally as we're talking about this today, I'm posting a video of this today, and so I will send you the recipe to share with everyone. I have been on a big egg. This is totally unrelated to Mexico, but I have been on a very big egg salad kick. I in the video I literally opened it up saying like I need to admit that I've been eating copious amounts of egg salad, which is true. I think egg salad does not get the love that it deserves. I think there's a lot of boring, bland egg salad in the world, and I think people would appreciate super flavorful egg salad. And so my secret ingredient in my egg salad is actually chili crisp. That very little bit of spice. You have so much fat in egg salad. You have the fattiness from the actual egg itself, the yolk. You have the mayonnaise in there. And so obviously you add the acidity. So I do like I start very traditionally with, mayo, some Dijon mustard, some whole grain mustard, some lemon juice, salt, pepper. Then I add a little bit of that chili crisp, which gives that like kind of spice, which kind of helps with that lemon juice to cut the fattiness. Then I go in with chopped up dill, some chopped up chives, celery, gherkins. I pull out all the stops. Gherkins, capers. Am I forgetting anything? I think that's everything. Mix that up. I then take my eggs, use high quality eggs. You can hard boil them or you could do them a little jammy. And then I like to just take my knife, chop them up in no particular order. So you get kind of all different shapes, mix it up, challah, some lettuce, a little more chili crisp, salt, pepper, bam. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, late night snack, any time of day, it's a winner.
I love that. And for the record, I love egg salad as well. So this is,
Thank you.
I'm really
As a
excited.
self-proclaimed egg salad mascot, I thank you.
Well, we were talking about the Instant Pot before. That was the first thing I cooked in it.
Ooh,
was the hard-boiled eggs, right?
Yeah, that is quick.
What's easier than that? It was either that or mac and cheese. It was like a 1-2. Anyway,
both great choices,
right? But they're in comfort food.
Yeah, I mean, I have some more of the egg salad in the fridge, and I will be eating it when we end recording this because now I'm craving it.
And I do not have hard-boiled eggs, so I've got a little bit more lead time than immediate, but there is definitely more egg salad in my immediate future as well. You were talking before about cooking and how you want to make it look easy. What are some tips for it to actually be easy?
So I think a few things. Actually, it's funny. Earlier today, I was like running some errands, and I ran into a guy came up to me who was a fan of my videos, and he was like, "Oh, I love your videos. Like, I don't really cook much, but like, I just changed jobs, and now I have more time, and I'm trying to get more into cooking." And like, my advice, I said to him, I was like, "Cook what you already like to eat." I think there could be a desire when you start cooking, if you haven't done a lot of cooking before, to be like, "Oh, I need to learn this and this and this fancy thing." If you like mac and cheese, start by attempting to make mac and cheese. If you like burgers, start making burgers because, you're inevitably going to run into problems when you're cooking. You're going to have some fails. You're going to have some, or not even some messes, probably a lot of messes. And if you already start by cooking something you like, if it goes a little wrong, it'll probably still be delicious enough. And I think that'll give you the confidence to keep going. I think if you're, new to cooking, you go, "Oh, I'm going to try making a creme brulee," okay. If that fails and then your eggs separate and it becomes a mess, you might get discouraged. So start with something approachable. Start with things, I think 25% of cooking is confidence. And I think you need to build up that confidence.
Really, really good advice. You reminded me when I first started getting obsessed with cooking, one of my goals was to learn how to cook without a recipe. And then I realized I needed to first learn how to cook with a recipe. So
yes,
baby steps,
I
right?
think that's very true. Yeah.
What is your absolute favorite Jewish food?
Matzo ball soup. chicken matzo ball soup. My grandma makes it the best. She then taught me how to make it. It is just pure comfort in a bowl. Just, me and my family do firm matzo balls, not light and fluffy. You want some texture, with a good rich broth. Literally, I could eat that any time of day, every day. I could eat it in the heat of the summer. I'll still be just as happy.
I love it, and me too. What is you're a New Yorker and a Jew, so this question is going to be a little obvious as well. What is your perfect bagel?
Okay, so I have a little confession. I've lived in New York City now for 3 years, and I did not, to any form of regularity, consume bagels on any regularity until like a few months ago when I woke up one morning and didn't have anything to eat for breakfast and then chose to go to the bagel store. So that's my admission as a New York City resident who's Jewish. And I'm going to be really honest. My answer, I couldn't have a worse answer. I just get a plain room temperature cinnamon raisin bagel and eat it as such.
There is nothing wrong with that. And this is something, in a few episodes ago, we went into like a bagel sidetrack. So now I feel the need to ask. It is now the bagel question as part of Taste Buds with Deb. So there are no wrong answers, but we all have very strong bagel opinions. Well, we all have strong food opinions because we love cooking and food, because that, as you said, as I agree, it brings us together. It is a commonality that you can run into, I believe, any stranger and start talking about, well, they run into you and start talking about food, but normal people can have a conversation with like anybody about food because it's something we all need, love, desire, and enjoy chatting about, right?
Yeah, no, I have no shame in my plain cinnamon raisin bagel game, but I do think if I entered a synagogue and said that opinion in New York City, there'd be some boos. Definitely, about booze, I mean like boo, not booze.
Boo. Yeah.
There probably also would be some booze there as well. But yes, no, I agree. There's no shame in the plain bagel game. And yeah, I mean, the best, I think, in New York City, the latest icebreakers, if you were stuck in an elevator with someone, was where were you during the earthquake and how was your eclipse experience? But if those ever fail you, or you don't live in New York City, where we have an earthquake once every like 100 years, just ask someone about what they ate for breakfast.
And it makes the trip go like that.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, and if someone doesn't want to talk about food, then,
then forget it, right?
Yeah, we could be friends, but how good of friends can we be? So, it's dodging a bullet, I guess.
It is also a great indicator if you are kindred spirits.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Some people aren't foodies, but, I choose happiness every day. So that's for me.
Well, and I found that even people who are not foodies, they still have opinions about food.
Yeah, I like opinions. If you hate something, I'm happy to hear why.
Or I don't like to cook, and then they go into it for 20 minutes about why they don't like to cook, which is also kind of hilarious.
Yes.
Any other food for thought you want to share?
Good food for thought. That's a good question. I mean, I think my main food for thought, something that I have been thinking a lot about on food, is this thing I truly believe, and I guess this might be a hot take, but I don't think it's that hot. Maybe it's like a warm take. I think 90% of foods that people think they don't like, they just haven't had it in a way that they like. I was actually a very picky eater as a kid, and as I've grown up, and also grown up working in food, have found that other than bananas, there is no food that I thought I didn't like that I don't actually now really love. For me, a big thing was I grew up when I was younger, I was lactose intolerant. And so I didn't eat that much dairy, and then I grew out of it. But for some weird reason, like cold cheese repulsed me. Like I could add cheese on a pizza, but not like, a cheese board. And now I love cold cheese. Make cheese boards constantly. It's I eat cheese as a giant part of my diet. I love blue cheese is my new thing I'm obsessed with, and so I really believe, or Brussels sprouts. As a little kid, my parents made Brussels sprouts. Like, I don't like Brussels sprouts. I don't like Brussels sprouts. I love Brussels sprouts now. So it's something I really do encourage is like, if you think you don't like the food, like if you're at a restaurant and you know you like the food at this restaurant and there's Brussels sprouts on the menu, but you think you don't like Brussels sprouts, if you trust that chef or that restaurant or anything, try it. I literally promise you, most foods you think you don't like, you just haven't had in a way you like yet, and it will change your food eating life if you start having that mindset.
Amazing. And then another topic of conversation.
Exactly. I really believe that. I'll take that one to the grave.
Awesome. And I also have to ask, what advice do you have for people who are either aspiring head chefs or adult chefs or aspiring chefs in media? What do they need to know that's going to really up their game?
Some very basic practical things: good lighting, clear camera. Make sure that you wipe the schmutz off your lens. Those are two very simple steps. And then I would say beyond that, people say, oh, be authentic, be yourself. That's important. But I also think, just like you have an unlimited set of data as to what works, watch what other people are doing and take notes. Obviously, you're not going to copy other people. You don't want to, be someone who is mimicking other people. But I think you're able to there's so many successful people doing food. And this is even what I do. And this is my full-time job. I regularly, weekly, spend time looking at what my peers are doing, seeing, oh, this person's doing this, that's working for them. Oh, it's interesting. Their audience seems to be responding well to this. Maybe I can incorporate this type of thing. I'll give you an example. There are a lot of people now who do narrative over their cooking, narrative voiceovers, where, they're not actually being like, okay, do this. Instead, while they're cooking, they're telling a story. That's something I was like, oh, that's interesting. I'm going to try to incorporate some of that into my content. So that'd be my main thing, is don't copy what other people are doing, but pay attention to what the people who are in the positions that you'd love to be in are doing. It's something that I do every day, and it's something that I think the most successful people do is, look around them and learn from others.
I would think that inspiration is everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's in the kitchen or in a restaurant or in videos. So what do you think, from the food perspective, inspires you the most about what you do?
I think purely what inspires me to then do my content is really just eating at restaurants, exposing myself to new food, consuming content, just allowing myself to try things and then fail. I think, especially when you're obviously if you're just cooking for yourself, you don't need to necessarily do this, but for someone who's working in food and in, trying to develop their own recipes, is like, don't be afraid to fail. I mean, I come up with ideas, I try them, and then most are honestly good, but some are absolutely awful. And I'm like, okay, I'm not releasing that to the world. But I think that's the most important thing, is like, take inspiration from everywhere and don't be afraid to make something that isn't how you want it to be.
Is there, and I also feel kind of goofy asking you this question, but it's my favorite and I can't resist. What is something you know now that you wish you knew when you started cooking?
Clean as you cook. It's something I still need to work on. I'm definitely better at it, but yeah, don't wait to start cleaning until you're eating the thing that you're just spent an hour or two cooking.
Because it piles up and nothing is, it's dishes is probably the worst part of cooking.
Yes, that would be my biggest lesson.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat food today. Where can people learn more about you and your new series and everything, Eitan?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Eitan, Eitan. Very five letters, easy to find. I'm also on Facebook, Snapchat. My website, eitanbernath.com, has all my recipes. The series is on at Eitan on Instagram. It'll be on TikTok. And yeah, I'm just excited for people to see it. It's, I think, very genuinely one of my proudest pieces of work that I've ever put out.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to watch it, and I'm excited to see where you go next, because you've been on this journey for a while, but you're still really just getting started. So I'm very
Thank you so much.
excited for you, and I'm really glad we had this opportunity. So thanks again for joining me, and thank you for tuning in to Taste Buds with Deb. Don't miss an episode. You can subscribe on YouTube and or your favorite podcast platform. And you can go to jewishjournal.com/podcast to get the recipe and read the articles that go with each episode. And you can learn more at tastebudswithdeb.com. So go try new things, be inspired everywhere. Until next time, bon appetit.